The forest was silent. Too silent, only the sound of wind moved between the tall black trees. Leaves rustled, and something crackled underfoot. A man, maybe in his late 30s, walked slowly, his flashlight cutting through the darkness. His name was Eli Ward. He didn't remember how he got there. He looked around. The trees looked familiar, like a place from his dreams. Cold air brushed his skin. His breath fogged in front of his face. The flashlight flickered for a moment, then came back on. He muttered to himself, trying to stay calm. Then he saw a dot just a few feet ahead. Someone was lying on the ground, body twisted, covered in dirt and blood. The person wasn't moving. Eli ran closer, heart racing, and then he froze. The man on the ground. Was him got same face, same eyes, same jacket with the Lab ID tag. But this version of him was bleeding, weak, dying. There was blood on his chest, a deep wound. His eyes were half open. Eli dropped to his knees. What is this? The dying man struggled to speak. His voice was dry, broken. He reached a shaking hand toward Eli and whispered, "Whatever happens tomorrow, don't trust her." Then his hand fell. His body went still. Eli stared in shock, frozen in fear and confusion. His mind raced? Was this a dream? A warning? A trick? He looked at the blood on his hands. He had just met himself. Dying. 12 hours earlier. Eli sat up in bed, gasping for breath. Sweat covered his face. His hands were shaking. It was the same nightmare again. The forest. The body. The words. Don't trust her. He looked at the clock. 4:09 a.m. Eli was a lead systems engineer at Chronodyne Labs, a company that worked on time-based technology. The public knew they were building particle engines. But in secret, they were working on time shift experiments. He had worked there for 7 years. But in the last few months, something had changed. The machines were behaving strangely. Sometimes messages appeared in the system. Sometimes his own voice spoke back at him through the lab speakers. He got up, splashed cold water on his face, and looked at himself in the mirror. What is happening to me? He asked himself, but no answer came. Just silence. Later that morning, Eli walked into the lab, trying to act normal. The hum of machines filled the air. Screens glowed with numbers and waveforms. Other engineers worked quietly. Then he saw her doctor. Rhea Miles. She was standing at the main control panel, typing fast. Smart, focused, confident. She had joined the project 6 months ago and quickly became one of the lead scientists. People admired her, trusted her, but Eli wasn't sure anymore. She smiled when she saw him. Morning, Eli. Ready for another day of breaking time? He smiled weakly. Yeah, just tired. Rhea tilted her head. Nightmares again? Eli paused. You remember I told you about the forest dream? Rhea nodded. Yeah, the one where you see ... yourself. He looked into her eyes. Calm, honest. But his heartbeat quickened. Could this be her? The one he's not supposed to trust? She turned back to the control panel. By the way, we're testing Jump Protocol 3 today. If it works, we might actually move something a whole 3 seconds into the future. Eli nodded slowly, but he wasn't really listening. His mind was stuck on one detail. He noticed a small scar on Rhea's right wrist. It looked fresh, sharp, not deep. He remembered that. Scar. He had seen it before, in the forest. On the arm of the woman who was standing behind his dying self. The one in the blurred memory. He had seen the same scar there. The warning echoed in his head. Don't trust her. His hands turned cold. Later that evening. Eli sat alone in the break room, staring at the table. He had 100 thoughts running through his mind, but no answers. Was he going crazy? Or had something already gone wrong with time? The dying version of himself knew something terrible, and that version had warned him. But how could he not trust Rhea? She was smart, friendly. They had worked well together. And yet, the scar. The words. The fear in the dying Eli's eyes. Maybe tomorrow something would happen. Something that would change everything. Eli stood up, walked to the main lab, and opened the hidden control panel in the corner. He typed in a short line of code and activated a secret recording system. If anything happened tomorrow, he would have proof. As the screen lit up, he whispered to himself, no matter what happens, I need to know the truth. Asterisk cold wind blew through the hallway. The security camera outside. Chronodyne Labs turned slightly on its own, though no one touched it. The lights in the corridor flickered. A quiet humming noise filled the air, almost like a whisper. But too fast to understand. Then a strange image flashed on the lab monitor. Just for 1 second. A frozen frame. It was Eli. Screaming, covered in blood. But when the technician turned back to check, it was gone. 7:02 a.m. Eli's apartment. Eli stood in front of his bathroom mirror. He had barely slept. The message from the dying version of himself kept repeating in his head like a broken record. Don't trust her. But who was her? His brain said it was Rhea. His heart wasn't sure. He turned on the tap to splash water on his face and then suddenly froze. For a second, the reflection in the mirror moved before he did. He stepped back, breathing fast. Then he leaned in. His reflection looked exactly like him, but the eyes. They were terrified, and then it whispered without sound. Too late. Eli stumbled back, knocking over a glass. He didn't know what was real anymore. 8:15 a.m. Chronodyne Labs. The lab was busier than usual. Everyone was preparing for the first live time shift jump. Eli entered quietly, keeping his head down. His heart was pounding. He had set up a hidden data recorder the night before, just in case something strange happened. As he walked past the central terminal, he noticed something odd. There was a log entry from tomorrow's date. Jump _3.0 success subject alive. Time 14:09 date June 17. But today was June 16th. Eli frowned. He opened the file, but it was encrypted. Password protected. No one else seemed to notice it. Like it was hiding in plain sight, looking at ghost files again. Came a voice behind him. He turned sharply. Rhea. She was holding 2 coffees. She handed one to him. You okay? You look like you saw a ghost? Eli tried to smile. Maybe I did. Rhea leaned closer. You trust me, right? The question came too suddenly. Too direct. His throat went dry. Yeah, of course. She smiled and walked away. But that one moment, it felt like she was testing him. 11:23 a.m. Observation room, the jump machine, known as Vortex, was warming up. It hummed like a sleeping beast. Eli sat beside Rhea, watching the readings. The test subject today was a drone with a camera. Simple, clean, no risk. They would attempt to send it 5 seconds into the future and pull it back. If it worked, human tests could begin soon. Rhea adjusted her headset. Let's make history. But Eli wasn't listening. His eyes were locked on the monitor, because suddenly his face appeared on the drone's camera feed. Just a flash. His future self. Again. Bleeding. But now there was something else. A voice. His own. Coming through the speakers. Low, broken, and full of pain. She's not who you think she is. The loop is starting again. Rhea quickly muted the feed. The rest of the lab team looked confused. Feedback glitch, she said. Ignore it. But Eli knew. That wasn't a glitch. It was a message from himself. Again, 2:09 p.m. Exactly the time on the file. Eli was alone in the equipment room. Double-checking the hidden recorder. Suddenly a faint knock on the glass panel behind him. He turned, and his heart stopped. Outside the room stood someone in a lab coat. A man, same build, same face, same eyes. It was him. Again, not dying, not bleeding, but looking directly at him. Future. Eli raised one hand. Slowly. On it, words were written in thick black ink. Ask her about Project Loop. Then he disappeared. Vanished like smoke, and no one else saw him. No cameras recorded it, but Eli knew what he had to do now. 447 top-level access office. Eli sat across from Rhea in her office. She sipped coffee. Relax. smiling like nothing had changed. He leaned forward. Rhea, what's Project Loop? Her face froze. The smile faded. There was a long, cold silence between them. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she asked, where did you hear that name? June 17th to 8:42 a.m., Chronodyne Labs. Data storage room. Eli sat alone in the storage room, staring at his laptop screen. That recording didn't exist in any lab system. It came from an old drive one that wasn't even plugged into the main network. He found it by accident. Or maybe it was meant to be found. It was his voice. He couldn't deny that. But when did he record it? He never remembered saying those words. And the line, don't even trust me, that hit hard. Was his own future self working against him, or warning him about something worse. He copied the file into a locked folder, encrypted it, and slid the USB into his jacket pocket. His head throbbed with confusion. Just then, his lab screen lit up. A new message had appeared. No sender. No, TIMESTAMP. Just one line. She wakes up at 3:14. He stared at it, frozen. What did it mean? Was someone watching him? 10:17 a.m. Vortex control chamber. Rhea stood in front of the team, explaining the next test. Eli stood quietly in the back. Barely listening, he couldn't stop thinking about the message. She wakes up at 3:14. Was it talking about Rhea? What would she wake up from? He looked at her, standing confidently by the time jump machine. She smiled at the team, calm, in control. But something inside Eli had changed. Every smile she gave him now felt rehearsed. Every word calculated. Suddenly, the main terminal beeped. A new file dropped into the system log. Jump_request _EW 001. That was his ID, but he hadn't entered any request. The timestamp? 3:14 a.m. Tomorrow. He quickly deleted it. Nobody saw. Someone or something was trying to put him into the machine. 2:31 p.m. Personal quarters. Restricted level. Eli used his master key to access a secured part of the lab. Old test recordings were stored here. Most of the footage was corrupted or erased, but then he found something odd. A file named loop_03_broken.mp4. He played it, the screen flickered, and then his own face appeared, sitting in a chair, looking directly into the camera. Future Eli, eyes hollow, face bruised, hands tied behind the chair. Someone off screen asked him a question. Why did you go back? And future Eli answered, because I thought she could be saved. A loud beep. Then the video glitched and stopped. 4:10 p.m. Rooftop of Chronodyne. Eli stepped into the fresh air. He needed space to breathe, but he wasn't alone. Rhea was already there, leaning against the railing. She turned, surprised. Didn't expect anyone else up here, she said softly. Eli tried to stay calm. Neither did I. They stood in silence for a moment, wine brushing their faces, city lights below flickering like stars. Then she asked, Eli, have you ever felt like you've already lived today? He looked at her sharply. She smiled, but there was something different behind her eyes now. I've been dreaming the same hour over and over, like time is broken, like something is chasing me, and it always ends with you disappearing. Eli's heart dropped. She was having dreams too. Were they both stuck in the same loop? Was she lying? Or was she trapped? Just like him? Later that night, 3:14 a.m. Eli didn't sleep. He sat in the lab, alone, watching the clock. 3:14 a.m. Nothing. Silence. And then, suddenly, every screen in the lab turned black. One by one. They blinked back on, showing the same video file. A grainy image. Eli standing inside the vortex chamber. Wires connected to his head. Eyes closed. Then the camera zoomed in. His lips moved. He whispered, "This is the last loop." And the file ended. Asterisk. Eli stood in a hallway made of mirrors. Endless reflections stared back at him, hundreds of versions of himself. Some were smiling. Some were crying. One was covered in blood. He reached out to touch the glass, but it turned to water. The reflection spoke in his voice. You already jumped. You just don't remember. Then every mirror shattered. He fell into nothing. June 18th to 7th, 48 a.m. Chronodyne Labs Eli woke up at his desk, heart racing. His shirt was soaked in sweat. His head ached. The dream felt too real. He checked the clock. He had only closed his eyes for 5 minutes. On his screen was a single line of code, blinking. Hashtag loop, confirmed. He didn't type that. He checked the system logs. Someone, or something, accessed the vortex chamber remotely at 3:14 a.m. The same time from the last message. Had a jump already happened? Without him knowing? Or worse, with him in it? 10:03 a.m. Main Labria entered the chamber, a tablet in her hand. She looked fresh, calm, maybe too calm. She said, "We're ready to try a human-assisted sync pulse. Just 2 seconds forward this." Time. Eli didn't respond. His mind was on the hidden messages. The bleeding version of himself, and the recording that warned, "Don't even trust me." She smiled. "You okay to assist the jump?" He nodded slowly. "Yeah, let's do it." But he slipped something into his pocket, a signal tracker connected to his hidden recorder. If time bent again, he'd know. 11:59 a.m. Vortex test chamber. Eli stood inside the jump pod for calibration. "Count to 3, said Rhea from the control room. "Got it." He exhaled. 1. A sharp noise cut through the room, then blackness. Unknown, future, or broken time. Eli opened his eyes. He wasn't in the lab anymore. He was standing in the same chamber, but it was destroyed. Burnt wires, broken glass, sparks flickering in the dark. Everything was silent. He turned around and gasped. There were bodies on the ground. Technicians, scientists, people. He knew dead. The walls were burned with strange markings, like someone had written equations using fire. On the far end of the room, a figure moved. Eli slowly walked forward and stopped cold. Dade was himself, sitting on the floor. Hands tied, bruised, his eyes full of pain. "Not again," the Thai Eli whispered. "Why did you come back?" "She's already seen this." Before Eli could respond, a voice echoed through the chamber. "Subject EW001 has broken containment. Begin reset." Everything around him started shaking. The floor cracked. The air bent like glass. A giant mirror appeared in front of him, showing Rhea, standing calmly in a clean lab, watching him like a lab rat. She spoke through the mirror. "I told you not to go back alone." Eli screamed, reaching for the glass. 2. Late. Jump reverse initiated. Light swallowed him whole. Back in Chronodyne. Lab time. 12:01 p.m. Eli stumbled out of the vortex pod, gasping for air. His team rushed over. Rhea was first. "You okay? That wasn't supposed to happen. You were gone for longer than 2 seconds. He looked at her. He couldn't speak. His mouth was dry, hands shaking. But the scariest thing? No one else remembered the jump. To them, he had never left the pod. Only Eli knew. Only Eli saw what was coming. Later, Eli's private notes, voice memo. "I saw her, watching me. I think she controls the loop. Or maybe she's trapped in it too. Either way, I have to find out the truth, or I'll die there again." Last scene, that night, Eli reviewed the signal recorder data. There was a new voice message, buried deep in static. He filtered the noise. It was his voice. But not just his. Another version of Rhea was speaking to. Her voice said, "We failed. Eli. Again. But this time, one of us remembered. Run. Before she resets everything again." June 19th to 2nd, 3 a.m. Eli's apartment. Eli couldn't sleep. The room was dark, except for the soft blue light from his laptop. He was re-watching the drone camera footage from the failed jump, frame by frame. Pixel by pixel, then in frame 1287, there it was, a shadow, behind the vortex chamber. For less than half a second, he zoomed in. The shadow was shaped like a person, female, standing completely still. The time stamp Was wrong. It said June 20th, 2:03 a.m. Exactly 24 hours. Ahead, a woman was already in the footage before she had entered the room. Time wasn't just looping now, it was leaking. 8:12 a.m. chronodyne restricted archives. Eli used a bypass code to enter the lower levels of the lab. This area was sealed off 6 months ago, after a failed test melted half the server room. But he wasn't looking for equipment. He was looking for himself, got in a storage bin labeled Loop Data 003. He found a leather-bound journal, old, burned along the edges. But it had his name inside were 50 pages of handwritten entries, all in his handwriting, all dated in the future, and some in timelines that no longer existed. One entry stopped his breath. Entry number 12. Rhea didn't lie. She just couldn't tell me. The loop resets her memory. Every time I die, I remember more. Every time she dies, she remembers nothing. Eli's hands trembled. So she wasn't the enemy? Then why did the bleeding version of him still say, don't trust her? 10:30 a.m., cafeteria balcony area, sat alone, watching the sky. Her coffee was untouched. Eli joined her. Quiet. Careful. You look tired, she said without looking at him. I read something, he said, from someone who says they know you. Rhea smiled softly. Did they say good things or bad? Both, he replied. It said, you forget every time the loop restarts. She didn't speak for a moment. Then she whispered, so it's happening again. Eli turned to her, surprised. You remember? No, she said, eyes wet, but I dream of fire. Of your voice calling me? And I wake up crying, but I don't know why? She looked at him. Eli, what did we do? 2:45 p.m. Vortex Diagnostics Room. Eli plugged the journal into the scanner. Every page had embedded microprint hidden data, readable only by the machine. He ran the decryption. The computer beeped. A message flashed. Project. LOOP reboot threshold. 7 resets. Current count. 6. His blood ran cold. One more loop. If it restarted again. Would he remember anything? Would Rhea forget everything again? Or would they both become echoes like the other broken Elis in past timelines? Evening. Rhea's lab terminal. Eli quietly searched her system. Not to spy, but to understand in her private files. He found audio logs never sent, unshared, buried deep. He played one. Test day 3. Subject. Eli Ward. He trusts me. That's what makes it hard. I wish I didn't remember his face. Every time he dies, another log. If this reset fails again, I'll try to change the sequence. Maybe this time, he'll survive. Tears stung Eli's eyes. She had tried to save him over and over, and every time, she had to start all over. Maybe the message she once heard, don't trust her, was never about betrayal. Maybe it was a warning from a version of himself that never saw her side. Maybe it was himself he couldn't trust. 9 colon. Oh. PM Eli's lab station, he added a final voice entry to his private log. I don't know who the real enemy is. But if she's the one resetting the loop, it's not to kill me. It's to save me, or maybe save herself. Tomorrow, I'll ask her one question. Not about the machine. About us. If she remembers the answer, then I'll know. I'll know if we've been here before. Final scene. The next morning, Ray walked into the lab. Eli looked up from his desk. He smiled and asked simply, do you still hum when you're nervous? She paused, then smiled faintly. Only when I'm trying to lie. They looked at each other. Somewhere something had broken. Thought maybe something else had finally begun. Asterisk file name. Eli _ versus _ Eli _ V 7.4. 2 voices. Same tone. Same man. Both are Eli. One sounds angry. The other, Kyr. Eli number 1. You trusted her again, didn't you? Eli number 2. This time was different. Eli number 1. It's never different. That's why we're still here. Eli number 2. So what do I do? Kill her. Or myself? Eli number 1. No, You do what none of us ever did. You break the loop. June 20th to 6:59 a.m. Chronodying rooftop Eli stood at the edge of the rooftop, staring down at the city. Cold air touched his face. The sun hadn't risen yet. Dot in his hand was the old journal, now torn, weathered, and half-burned. He flipped to a page he hadn't noticed before. Dot. It had only 3 words. Be unpredictable today. He closed the book. Today, he would stop repeating the same decisions. No more testing. No more waiting. No more trust. Or fear. Today, he would go rogue. 9:30 a.m. Central Labria entered the lab like she always did. Calm, confident, clipboard in hand. But Eli wasn't at his desk. She called his name. No answer. Then she saw the main terminal. It had been hacked. The vortex jump sequence was already running to 20% charged. And the destination time? Unknown. Before she could shut it down, a message popped up on screen. You've done this 6 times, Rhea. Let's see how you handle not knowing what comes next. Eli, her hands trembled. Elsewhere. Eli's hideout in the lab basement. Eli had found a hidden sub-control room months ago. A place buried beneath the original lab from its construction phase. No cameras, no sound recorders, no Rhea. Just silence and power. He connected his own to Vortex's remote controls. He wasn't going to jump forward or backward anymore. He was going to jump sideways into alternate timelines, versions of the world where different choices had been made. Maybe one of those Elis had broken the loop. Maybe they had failed worse. Either way, he had to know. First jump, timeline hash Delta 47. The room blurred, stretched, and vanished. He opened his eyes. Same lab. But something was very wrong. There were photos of Rhea all over the wall, like a shrine. And red lines connecting events, dates. DEATH, as a chalkboard, had a sentence written 100 times. Rhea betrayed me. Again. Eli turned and saw a man tied to a chair. Bloody, pale. His face. His voice. You came here? Idiot, she wins in this one. You loved her too much. That's why you stayed. Then, a gunshot from outside. Rhea's voice. He's here. Reset it now. Eli jumped again, blindly. Second jump, timeline hash Delta 12 this time. The lab was peaceful, clean, bright sunlight through the windows. And Rhea was alive, but smiling warmly. Holding a child with Eli's eyes. He stepped back. Stunned. Future. Rhea looked at him and whispered, This is the loop you never reached. This is the one where you trusted me. And we left? But you didn't stay. You always run. Eli looked down. His hands began flickering. Like static. He didn't belong here. Not yet. Third jump. Timeline hash Delta X, the null zone. Darkness. Silence. No lab. No. People. Just an endless black hallway. And on the wall, one sentence written in white paint. You've jumped too many times. There's nothing left to break. He heard footsteps. Not himself. Something else. He ran and jumped one last time. Back in the original. Timeline. June 20th to 3rd 14. PMEL. I reappeared in the lab, gasping for air. He was shaking. His body felt stretched. Like he had passed through 100 versions of pain and peace. Rhea stood in front of him, not scared, not angry. Just tired. She stepped forward. You saw them, didn't you? He nodded slowly. Some versions of you killed me, she said softly. Some versions of me killed you. But we always ended up back here. Eli looked her in the eye. I don't want to go back. She held out her hand. Then help me finish it. The loop isn't ours. It was put here. He took her hand, and the moment he did, the lights in the lab turned red. A voice echoed from above. Unauthorized emotional sync detected. Reset countdown. 60 seconds. Countdown begins. Rhea and Eli stood side by side. One loop left. One chance to break it. And this time, they were together. Transmission log. Recovered signal source. Unknown. Timestamp. 73 years ahead. A voice plays. Old, calm, familiar. This is Eli Ward. If anyone's listening, ... We broke the loop. But it wasn't easy, and it wasn't free. A pause. Static. If she's with you, ask her what she remembers. That's how you'll know it's real. Transmission ends. June 20th to 3rd, 59 p.m. Chronodyne Labs. Loop reset countdown. 60 seconds. Eli and Rhea stood at the center of the vortex chamber. Alarms flashed red. Sirens blared. A voice repeated its warning. Emotional sync confirmed. System unstable. Reset imminent. But they didn't move. They held hands. Do you trust me? She asked. He didn't answer with words. Instead, he reached into his jacket and pulled out a drive. The collected memories of every loop. The voices, the notes, the jumps, and slid it into the core panel of the machine. Then let's give the system something it's never seen, Eli said. Two people choosing the unknown. Together, Rhea typed fast, overriding the system. New command? Merge loop core plus memory bank status. Unstable result. UNPREDA. Chamber began to glow. Time fractures. The world around them bends and splinters like cracked glass. Suddenly, Eli sees 1,000 versions of himself flash before. Him running, dying, betraying, trusting, screaming, laughing. In some timelines, Rhea shoots him. In others, he saves her. In one, they grow old together. But through all of them, he keeps coming back. Until now. The machine pulses. Choice forms in front of him. Forget to escape or remember and repair. He turns to Rhea. She's flickering 2 tears in her eyes. If we forget, we won't know what we had, she says. If we remember, we might break everything. Eli steps forward. Then let's break it. They press the panel. Together. Silence. Just light. No alarms. No sound. No. Loop. Sometime later. Unknown location. Eli wakes up on a park bench. Sunlight. Birds. Wind. No machines. No countdowns. He touches his chest. No scars. No burns. Just peace. A child runs past, laughing. Across the path. Rhea sits on another bench. Reading a book. She sees him. Smiles. But there's no recognition. Like they've never met. He walks over. Sits beside her. Nice day, he says. She nods. Feels like deja vu. He chuckles. Me too. Then, gently, he asks, do you still hum when you're nervous? She stops. Her eyes widen just a little. A long pause. And then, only when I'm trying to lie. Their eyes lock, and this time they remember. Final scene, days later at night. Eli sits alone under the stars, holding the old journal. The last page is blank. He writes one line. We didn't escape the loop. We ended it. But as he closes the book, a small flicker appears on his wrist screen. A glitch. One line of data. Loop status. UNKNOW, and he looks up at the stars and smiles.